Hello, you're watching this video because you're having difficulty with the third letter of Texas, the examples, or your evidence. So remember, for this specific essay, you're going to find a piece of evidence that best shows your selected juror's bias, prejudice, personality, or past experience that has led him to have a particular viewpoint. So for instance, if you're working with juror number 5, you have to think about what about his past experiences, background, or personality has led him to have a particular viewpoint? I know that at some point he did change his vote from guilty to not guilty. Which one of these, bias, prejudice, personality, or past experiences, led him to change his vote? Once you have that idea in your head, you're going to go back to the book and try to find the piece of evidence that best supports your idea. If you have difficulty remembering exactly where that evidence may be, you can use the text evidence scavenger hunt. We have Act 1 and Act 2 posted into this presentation. If you clicked Act 1, these are all the important plot points that occurred in Act 1. I've given you page numbers and just a quick synopsis of what's going on during those sections. Let's say that your evidence is somewhere during the knife discussion. I know I'm going to look at pages 20 to 25 to find a piece of evidence that best supports the past experience that has led my juror to change his mind. If I cannot find it in Act 1, I'm going to go back to home and look in Act 2. And again, we have some really important plot points and page numbers that you can use to help you find your evidence. Once you're done, you'll go back to home. Once you found the evidence that you want to use, now you need to actually put it onto your paper. And I've highlighted some important parts that ninth graders sometimes forget. Let me read this for you first, and then we'll go over what each highlighted part means. Again, this is from the Cask of Amontillado. For example, the author states, quote, "Come," I said, "with decision. We will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy, as once I was. We will go back. You will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lucrece." Quote, Poe 17. Okay, so whenever you have text evidence, you need to let your reader know that these are the words of an author or someone else and not your words. And the way that you do that is by putting comma, quote, and quote before and after your piece of evidence. A lot of students often forget the quote marks, so I thought it was important to highlight them so that you don't forget. You also don't want what's called a floating quote, just kind of saying this quote without introducing it in any way. Mr. Goldman and I call this your launch phrase. And our launch phrase here is, for example, the author states. And I highlighted it in red because, again, this is something sometimes people forget, and it's very important. Otherwise, it's just a floating quote. You could also say that Montresor once stated, "Come," I said, "with decision, ... Whatever it is, you need a launch phrase with the punctuation mark of a comma in the quote and then the quote. At the end of the quote, you want to add the author's last name and the page number in which you found your evidence. So in this case, for Cask of Amontillado, I wrote Poe 17. You only need his last name. So in this case, it would say Rose and then whatever page number you got your evidence from. If one line is on page 17 and the bulk of the evidence is on page 18, then feel free to just write Rose 18 because that's where the bulk of the evidence is. Well, I hope this helped.